keep doing this, we won't find anything to disagree on. That was Nick Clegg, overheard joking to David Cameron 2 months ago.
Now, as he tries to revive his party's electoral fortunes, could it be time for the Lib Dem leader to start trying to stress his differences with David? Mark Pack is co-editor of Lib Dem Voice. Now, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Looking on your blog, I see that you're calling it Black Friday. I mean, how bad do you see the situation of those results?
It was certainly a grim set of election results. If you look at the proportion of councillors now who are Liberal Democrat, it takes the party back to where it was in about 1993, which is certainly not a good set of results. I think the fact that it takes us back to 1993 also, though, highlights that there is definitely a real opportunity for the party to recover over the next few years. It's not like the party has been completely wiped out or returned to its tiny size in the 1970s. But that recovery is not inevitable. It's going to require a lot of hard work, and it's also going to require us to learn the lesson of what the voters told us on Thursday.
Well, yes. I mean, I suppose that's the thing, really. What was the message? Because Nick Clegg was very quick to praise all the Lib Dem activists, people who've been out there trying to do their jobs, the councillors who some of them lost their jobs now. I mean, what is the message this is sent to him personally?
I think one of the problems has been that at times we've seemed to be a little too keen to talk up in public how much we agree with Conservatives or how much we agree with a policy that actually is a Conservative policy rather than a Liberal Democrat policy. If you look at the local level, in many councils where there have been Lib Dems running the counselling coalition with other parties, we've often done really well at subsequent elections because we've had a relatively relaxed, almost adult approach to saying where we disagree, we let our disagreements show, and obviously where you agree, there should be no reason to hide your agreements either, but to actually let your disagreements show as well. And I think we've probably not done enough of letting the disagreements show in public over the last year in coalition.
Well, you're saying we. I mean, some people have, haven't they? Vince Cable, for example, has been very outspoken. You're talking really about Nick Clegg, aren't you? You're saying that you want to see him stepping out more in public and saying, you know, I genuinely disagree about something. This is something that I cannot agree with the Tories about. Because otherwise you have this curious blur, don't you, where they're saying, well, it's sort of, in theory, I don't really agree, but this is the policy and we're in a coalition and we will push ahead. I mean, that's the mantra, isn't it? The problem is that if you genuinely say, I don't agree and I won't do it, that's probably what your Lib Dem voice, Liberal Democrats want to hear that kind of tone, and that's the one thing he cannot say.
Well, I think it does apply much more widely than Nick Clegg, because you mentioned Vince Cable, and I think, for example, he did make a mistake with launching the tuition fees policy last year in terms of sounding just a little bit too keen to leave previous Liberal Democrat policy behind. It's clear that with both Labour and Tory MPs being in favour of increasing tuition fees, there was no way the Liberal Democrat general election policy could get through. But I think we could have been a lot better at saying, look, we don't really like what's being forced on us by the fact that more people voted Tory and more people voted Labour than voted Lib Dem.
But on the Nick Clegg, David Cameron thing, I mean, he is in an impossible position, really, isn't he? Because he cannot come out of a meeting with David Cameron on some kind of serious policy issue, the health service, whatever it might be, and say, you know, I don't agree with what's happening, but we're doing it anyway. I mean, he cannot do that.
I think it is quite possible to say overall that, you know, we are in coalition, we are the smaller of the two parties in coalition, and therefore there are policies which are being implemented which are Conservative Party policies. And of course there should be, given there are more Tory MPs than Lib Dem MPs. And I think in all sorts of other walks of life and indeed at other levels of politics outside Westminster, people manage that balance on the one hand to work productively and constructively with people and not to immediately come out of a meeting and start trashing them, but on the other hand to also, you know, let the differences show and make it clear that the overall policies are a mix of two different parties' policies. It's not the one has been subsumed into the other.
Mark, thank you very much for that. Good to see you here this morning.